Okay, hello. We've got a special interview today with Dawn Bennett, DAS, which stands for Disease Avoidance Specialist, and Dawn is a practitioner of natural hygiene, a health coach, a speaker and author, one of the pioneers of the Woodstock Festival, and he has a lot of interesting things to say, a lot of experience. So I'm looking forward to sharing some time with Dawn today and just getting his perspective on health, natural hygiene, fruit-based diet, veganism, and everything really. So, how are you, Dawn? And is there anything else you'd like to say, just as an introduction to yourself?
Well, you've covered the bulk of it. How you doing, Ronnie? Greetings from South Florida, USA.
Excellent. Now, you're a disease avoidance specialist. What is that, and how did you come to be that and being in that line of work?
Well, when I was younger, I saw people in my own family living to over 100 in relatively good health and just basically dying in their sleep of nothing specific. And then I saw other people in my family barely making it to 65. The last, one sixth or one seventh of their life was not very good. They were in and out of hospitals. They had all kinds of problems. So you didn't have to be a rocket scientist to notice this difference between the two. And obviously, genetics are pretty much out of the picture because they're all in my family. So I was curious as to what accounted for some people living to over 100 and other people dying at 65 of something horrible. And I looked around. It wasn't hard to see the differences in diets, and I realized that also as a young kid that I kind of surmised that human beings all probably are designed to eat the same diet. I was a very introspective kid, very questioning kid. So I mean, all other animals seem to have one specific diet, regardless of wherever they were on the planet. They had one diet that they would eat if it was available to them in their geographical location. Why should we be any different? And it was conspicuous by looking at how we did eat. We ate according to ethnicity. I remember the arguments that my parents would have or other people would have. Well, what should we have for dinner tonight? Chinese? No, let's do Italian. No, we have Italian the other night. Tonight, let's do Thai or let's do Italian or Mexican. And like, wait a minute, does that mean to say that people from China have different digestive systems than people from Mexico? It just didn't make any sense to me. So I was looking into these things and as to why some people would live to over 100 in my family. So when I started noticing the differences, it was a lot of aha moments for me. So I said, I want to do that for me. I want to live to over 100 because I really was enjoying the party being life. And I just wanted to live it as long as I could and be as healthy. It's not so much quantity of life. I realized at a young age it's more quality of life. So this is what put me on the path to asking questions and just being able to recognize certain things that when they came along. It's like if you've never owned a certain car before, then you buy it. Now you notice the other cars on the road that are just like yours. You didn't notice them before you bought the
Yeah.
one that you bought. So it just made me more sensitive to recognizing things. So if I'd hear vegetarianism, I was like, oh, what's that? Veganism, oh, that sounds like something I should look into. So eventually I just kind of figured out what are the tenets of natural hygiene for myself. I need enough sunshine. I need enough hydration. I need enough rest, and I need enough of the foods I'm designed to eat. And I shouldn't have to cook anything, so I stopped cooking things. And that was a moment I remember because I said, okay, I'm not going to cook anything. Oh my God, what am I going
Yeah.
to eat? What what is there to eat? Okay, there's got to be plenty because we didn't start out with cooking things. We started out as a species not
Yeah.
cooking things. I mean, I wasn't there at the time. I'm old, but I'm not that old. So I said, okay, what is it? Fruits. I do like fruit. So it was just a mind shift of going from fruit as a snack to fruit as a meal. And it wasn't a hard one to make because I love fruit. So now I started getting into more than just the fruits because I started to think about it. We couldn't have started in the temperate zone as a species. We had to start somewhere closer to the equator, somewhere more
Can I stop there
tropical.
can I
What?
stop you there 1 second because I just want to ask. I just want to ask. Did you come to that conclusion yourself? Was there no books you were reading, no speakers you were listening to? Was this just fully your own investigation?
Well, this was my own, yeah, this was definitely my own thinking process because at the time there was no internet. I didn't know anything about natural hygiene, never heard of it before. I had gone to a library to try and pull up some books on health, and you can pretty much guess the kind of health books you're going to find in a library. So I was left to my own devices to figure things out for myself. I was just really good at recognizing, like, what's wrong with this picture. I'm always like noticing what's wrong with this picture. So I came to realize that the fruits that I liked, well, are these the same fruits that are growing all over the world? I mean, I know that bananas did not grow in a temperate zone. They grew in a tropical zone. Well, what else grows there? It can't just be bananas and everything else grows in the temperate zone. So when I started to look into things, I started realizing there are other delicious, other tropical fruits. I didn't have access to them per se, but at least I realized that, apples, which I really never cared much for. I liked bananas because they had certain creaminess connected with them. I liked avocados. I just didn't like, then one day my mom brought home kiwis, loved them, and some other things. So, I just started eating fruit, and I felt a lot better. As I made these changes, the first thing I got out of my diet, well, I should go back. The first thing I started thinking about was I didn't like these roller coaster blood sugar levels that I had. I was either, really high up and I couldn't I couldn't concentrate, I couldn't relax, or I was really low and crawling around on the floor. I didn't like those highs and lows. I liked it when I was what I would call right in the middle. I didn't know what this was. And then I had a performing partner. We performed together for 20 years, traveling all around doing comedy. His mother said, she's a nurse, right? She was a nurse, and she said, I think you have hypoglycemia. So I went to look that up. There was a book on that. It was a paperback book called Sugar Blues by William Duffy. I read through this book. I mean, I just devoured the book, and I'm like, oh my God. Part of me resonated with what the book said, but part of me was like, no, it can't be true. No, nothing wrong with the candy and cookies you're eating. It's got to be something else. It's got to be genetic. I said, well, let me give it a try. Let me just stop eating all the cookies and ice cream and candy and pie and cake and all that stuff and see what happens. Wow, was there a difference. There was a little bit of withdrawal. But after I got all that out of my diet, I started feeling better, and I didn't have the big blood sugar level, ups and downs. So I said, I'm on the right track here. But how much better can I feel? What else am I eating? And what else am I eating? Because I would look in the store, the supermarket, as I walked up and down the aisles, then at all the stuff I used to buy, the cookies and the pie and the cake, and I said, what else is in this store that I'm not really designed to have? So that kind of came before vegetarianism and veganism. But that's what led me to meat, because I said, all right, I know we call these canines, but I've seen canines, and they're nothing like this. These are called incisors. They're not canines, not for us. So I said, all right, I can't eat meat raw. Got to cook it to eat it. I'm not going to cook anything anymore, so meat's out of the question. But let me find a book on meat just to make sure, because, if I sliced it up thin enough, I could probably eat meat. People eat steak tartare, which is raw meat. Let me be absolutely sure. I don't want to do the wrong thing. So I got a book called Modern Meat by Orville Schell, I think his name is. And that just blew me away. So I said, okay, cool, no more meat, no chicken, no dairy. The dairy came before the meat and the chicken. I read a book called Don't Drink Your Milk by Dr. Frank Oski, and that was very enlightening. So I said, cool, all the things that I figured out that I really shouldn't be eating, probably shouldn't be eating, I shouldn't be eating. They're just bad for you. So I cut them all out, started feeling a lot better, got onto the fruit, realized I shouldn't be cooking anything, because there was that transition of stir-fry broccoli, and for a while there was tofu, the vegetarian and vegan stuff. So once I got all the cooked food out and just ate fruit, then I felt like 1,000,000,000% better. Up to then, it was 10% increments. As you went from 50-50 to 60-40 to 70-30 to 80-20 to 90-10, more and more raw food in your diet, you were feeling 10% incrementally better. Once I went 100% raw, that was huge. I mean, that was like 1,000,000,000% better. So I said, okay, I figured it out. Empirically, this is correct. Intellectually, it's correct. They jive together. It squares with nature. That's the number 3 thing. Okay, I'm good. So I'm just going to eat this for the rest of my life. This is fine. I honestly believed I won't say I thought I was the only person in the world to figure this out. I mean, that would be pretty arrogant of me. Other people must have figured this out too. What's the odds of meeting them? There's probably only 10 or 12 people in the whole world eating this way. So how would I even meet them? So, all right, I'm going to be alone doing this. But then someone who found out about the way I lived said, oh, you're one of those natural hygiene people. And I said, what is that? hygiene I thought was cleanliness. What is natural hygiene? Washing under a waterfall. Well, what is that? No soap, or I don't understand. They said, oh, it's a group of people who eat exactly like you do, and they're having a convention at Hofstra University, which was about half an hour from where I lived. And I said, are you pulling my leg? Are you making this up? So I went to look it up, and yeah, absolutely. Hygiene is the study of the science of health, named after the Greek goddess Hygeia. And I'm like, cool, I never heard of Hygeia. Now we know why we don't hear about Hygeia. We hear about all the rest of them, but we never hear about Hygeia. Please. So I went to this meeting of the American Natural Hygiene Society, which is what it was called at the time. And it was at Hofstra University, and there was 90 people who ate like I did. And I broke into tears at realizing I had a community. Now, that was at the time when the power structure of the American Natural Hygiene Society was shifting, and Joe Willard was on the way out, and other people were on the way in, and Michael Lennon took over, and he just wanted more membership. So they started bringing out cooked corn for the meals. And I'm like, cooked corn? And I was like, excuse me, can I have some raw corn at this table? And then everyone started asking for the raw corn. Of course, why is there cooked food being brought out? It was the time they started backpedaling in order to gain more membership. So I only joined for a whole year, and that was the end of that, because I didn't want any part of that political nonsense or the business aspect of it. And that's what started, by the way, Ronnie, that's what started to let me know that there was a business aspect to the raw food diet and to be on the lookout for that. So I was sensitized to that. So because, you come to this and you might just assume that everyone's altruistic and caring and they all want to do the best thing, 100% of us. So we don't have to be on our guard for any of the nonsense that pervades every other industry on the planet. And, when something goes from being a fad to a trend to a market to an industry, which is what raw foodism is today, the business people are going to come out. It's inevitable. It's just the way it is if there's money to be made. But that's another topic. If you want to talk about that, I'm kind of an expert on that too, because again, I look for that kind of stuff. So that was my path basically. And then I knew that I wanted to teach and counsel, but I wanted to get a lot of this under my belt. I wanted to be doing an all raw fruit-based diet for a long period of time, so I could have a track record, so I can continue my research. Then the internet appeared. I feel so lucky, Ronnie. There was no computers that you could have purchased until I was 29 years old. So I got to grow up without a computer. And I feel so blessed for that, because I feel sorry for the kids today who grow up with it. And they just don't know what it's like to grow up without this thing where they're like, and to use your imagination and build things and go out and play and all that stuff. So I didn't have much YouTube. MeTube. I didn't have much MeTube growing up because my mother would kick us out of the house. That's enough TV. It's enough screen time for you. Today, everyone is just, their eyeballs are glued to these screens. Anyway, I digress. So I wanted to research more and get more under my belt to make sure that I'm certainly on the right path before I start counseling people, because I realized after seeing doctors, when I was young, I was sick all the time, and some of them were smoking cigars and cigarettes, and they were overweight. And I said, that's kind of ironic, because these people are supposed to be into health, and that's when I started realizing it's not really, at least in this country, it's not a health care industry, it's an ill health management industry. And I mean, today doctors aren't as unhealthy as they were back then. I don't think many of them smoke today, maybe some still, but I just know that for me, it's a huge responsibility to be a health educator, to take other people's health in your hands, because it's the most valuable commodity we have is our health. So I wanted to be absolutely sure. So after about 10 years of doing it myself and researching and writing, okay, now I'm going to teach and counsel, and that's when I basically hung on a shingle and started doing that. And then I met people like Doug Graham, and before Doug I had met Joel Furman, Alan Goldhammer. This is way back in the days of the American Natural Hygiene Society, when they were giving lectures, and it was like great to be able to go to those lectures and meet all those people, Kiki Sidwa, and there was a couple other people. Dr. DJ Scott, who I admired a lot. He had a place, a fasting place in Ohio. So I did. I forget how I ran into him, but I remember hanging out with him and spending some time with him in Manhattan, which I believe is where he lived. I don't know. I don't remember how. It must have been through the American Natural Hygiene Society or somebody. But I remember hanging out with him and just having these wonderful conversations with him. He had a lot of these little booklets, which I thought was so cool. on different things and AIDS and other things. And he was a cool guy. He was very stressed. I could just feel it. I mean, when I go in Manhattan, you're just automatically stressed. But he was very stressed out over a lot of things. To find out later, it was IRS and things like that. So I think that had something to do with his demise, is all the stress he was under. Who knows what his B12 levels are? You know, there are things we know today that maybe we weren't so cognizant of back then, like B12 levels and stress bringing your B12 level down and things like that. So yes, I did hang out with him a little bit. And then I came across Doug at some point, Doug Graham, and I brought him into Atlanta, which is where I was living at the time, to do some speaking. I felt that he and I were on the same page for the most part. And who else? Rozzy then, of course, came into his life, met Rozzy. Now, like I said, I remember Joel Furman. I remember Joel. Oh yeah. I got to meet her eventually at an event that I spoke at, the Healthful Living International. And Doug and Virginia was there, and Tim Trader. Dr. Vetrano and I took a long walk on the beach. She is quite a character. So I got to meet her and a lot of people basically. Who else was there? What's her name? Oh, she's kind of it'll come to me. Virginia. It's not Vetrano. It's somebody else. The name will come to me. But I've met. I won't say I've met them all.
Yeah, sure.
But
So
most of them, I would certainly say most of them.
That was back then. When was that? The 90s or 80s?
Yeah, it definitely had to be in the 90s, and then up into then I started teaching, and then now when I first began teaching, by the way, I wasn't teaching the raw food diet per se, because I was going to teach to the mainstream public. So for them, I wanted just to get across the fact of how devastating to their health dairy products, meat, and grain products were. I wasn't even going to talk about the raw food diet. I wrote a few articles to have on my website about it, so that when people went there, they would be able to, read about it. But you would just blow people away if you gave a talk and said, this and this and this are horrible for you. Here's what you should be eating. Boom, it's all fruit all the time. And you'll just blow people away. So I just really wanted to get the mainstream public more sensitive to how devastating to their health meat and dairy and grain products were. I wasn't even talking about to the health of the planet. I knew about how it affected the health of the planet and, of course, how it affected the animals themselves. But I wanted to be as effective as possible. And I reasoned, because I had a kind of a psychology background, that I wanted to say what would really influence people. And people, self-interest is a big thing. So I think I thought I could influence more people by appealing to their self-interest, about them wanting really good health, painting a picture that you're going to have a future level of health, and this applies to everybody listening to this, everybody in the world. You're going to have a future level of health. Every day that you're alive, you're going to have a level of health. So what do you want that level of health to be? I'm not talking about tomorrow. I'm talking about 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years from now. What do you want that to be? If you want it to be the best that your genetics will allow, you've got to start making investments in that now. So these are the kind of things I would say, and it would get people thinking. And I would get a lot of people going, at the time I didn't have a book yet, so I would just print up the miniature articles that I had written about the hazards of dairy products, etc., and I would print them up at Kinko's and bring them to the events and just give them out for free. So there was no objection. No one had to pay any money. It was a free lecture. It was always free lectures. I don't charge for lectures. So I was making an impact. This was really cool. And then I went to, where was I? I went to Georgia, and I came across somebody who was teaching the raw food diet. They had an institute, Brenda Cobb, and I said, oh, this is cool. Maybe we could work together somehow, because I know a lot about the raw food diet. I love to teach it. I just, didn't want to blow people away. She's teaching it, so maybe let's go see if we can work together. Synergy. Ronnie, I'm a great believer in synergy. 1 + 1 = 124, So I found Brenda Cobb, and initially I was, this is great. And then I started to find out some things. I'm like, okay, no good. Let me go elsewhere. So I found some other people. I worked with them, and they were teaching the raw food diet, Jackie and Gideon Graff, and they had, I think it was a place where she was really good raw food chef. I mean, gourmet raw food chef. So they'd have
Okay.
potlucks with all the raw food stuff. And that's where I met Dr. Sam, by the way. So that worked out for a while until I started realizing what they were actually about, and which it didn't square with I'm trying to put this politely, it didn't square with how I wanted to run my business, so to speak. So we parted ways. That was the end of that. So I was a little disenchanted, but not surprised. So I just like struck out on my own and kept doing things on my own. And then along came the Woodstock Fruit Festival, where, well, the rest is history. It was an event tailor-made for myself and people like Ellen Livingston and Dr. Sam, etc. So this is going to be year 5, I think, for the Woodstock Fruits Festival. So that I guess
we'll maybe
brings
speak
us
about Woodstock
up to date.
in a little bit, because obviously there's a lot's went on at that event over the last few years. I guess, in fact, why don't we just speak about it now? What's your feelings on what's happened the last few years? I believe the New York event is coming to an end. I don't know what's happening with the Hawaii or anything else, but just tell me a story. Like initially, how were you contacted about it and everything, and the whole go from there.
I love the way you phrase that. Tell me a story. I love telling stories. So here's the story. It was when Michael Arnstein started to think about doing an event for this. So myself and a few other people were contacted, and then I got to speak to Yulia at the time, and I said, well, if you really want this to be a great festival, you got to have Ellen Livingston, you got to have Dr. Sam there. These are the people that I knew who would be great for the kind of event that Michael wanted to do. He wanted the truth to be out there, no nonsense stuff, no, I won't mention any names of some people in the raw food movement. None of them there. This is going to be done for the right people who are doing what they do for the right reasons. So I was really jazzed about it. I asked, well, who else is going to be there? And I heard no names. That there are events that I have been invited to in the past, but when I find out who's going to be there, I decline, because I just don't want to be at an event where there's somebody like David Wolf or somebody else. It's just we don't jive together, So this was going to be great, and we went to the first one, and it was fantastic. So I liked the whole ethos of it, what it stood for the real deal, the here's the truth, though the heavens may fall kind of thing, and it was going along pretty good. Then something happened where, I got to be honest with you, when I was told that I was one of the pioneers, I didn't really like the term. I just felt, I don't know if pretentious is the right word. I couldn't see myself calling myself a pioneer. That's not who I think of when I think of pioneers. I'll think of John Tilden or somebody like that, but I'm not going to think of myself as a pioneer. I'm an educator. I'm just someone who is continuing to teach it. But okay, I wasn't on the board. I didn't have a vote. I'm a pioneer. But to be a pioneer, there were certain criteria that you had to have. All right, well, that's a good thing, so there can be no misunderstandings of why is he a pioneer and he is not a pioneer. There was criteria that went up on the website. So when we're talking about Harley and Frehley now, when they were found to be no longer in concert with the 9 tenets of being, of the criteria for being a pioneer, I think they had violated 3 of them. Well, that's why you have criteria. So they were not going to be quote unquote pioneers anymore. Because they were still invited to come, they were still allowed to speak. They just couldn't be on that pioneer page. Okay, they would have none of it. If they were not, they just didn't want to have any of it anymore. They were out. So they left the event. They were not kicked out. So we obviously lost. When I say we, the event lost attendance, because they had their people that came to the event because they were there, and that's great. But now that they're not going to be there, they're people who follow them, etc.
It wasn't just like someone's not
don't
coming,
come. So
that
the
people aren't
attendance
coming.
dropped off.
It was like a whole shadow was cast in the way that the fallout from that and the way that was all projected, and everything about how that happened created a kind of negative, I don't know, atmosphere or whatever that wasn't really, yeah. drama. That wasn't. That was just drama. It wasn't. It shouldn't
Drama.
really
There was a
happen
lot of
that way. It
drama.
should have been just like you're saying. It should have just been someone's not coming or whatever, and that's it. But it did. It became it became a drama. And yeah. So
Well, there were reasons for it. For instance, Frederick Patnaud was
I mean,
invited to come to one of the events. I think it was the second or third year maybe, and it was understood after he gave his talks that he's not a good fit for the event, so he wasn't invited back. There was no drama. There was zero drama from that. He dealt with it as a professional. He understood. He goes, okay, no problem. Go to the other end of the spectrum, and Harley and Frehley just turned it into this thing where, they had to. I mean, they could have continued coming. They could have continued teaching. They chose not to, for whatever their own reasons, maybe having to do with just psychology. Who knows what it is? But they felt that they were dissed by the Woodstock Food Festival, and how dare they? But it's funny because Harley had a hand in making those 9 criteria for a pioneer. So it's not that he didn't know what they were, but so to violate them and think you could still be on the pioneer page, I don't know what was going through his mind, but whatever. So it didn't have to be the drama. The drama was the reason for it was twofold. Number one, Harley and Frehley had a lot of followers and ardent disciples, if you will, who took offense to this, and they started their own thing. They were part and parcel of the drama. They were lighting those fires and just deriding the Woodstock Food Festival. How dare you do this to our Harley and Frehley? And Harley and Frehley didn't really do anything to quiet that down. I'm not saying they fanned the flames, and maybe in some ways they did, but they didn't do anything to just say, "Whoa, no, that we were not a good fit anymore." Just like Frederick Patnaud, we were not a good fit anymore. We understand, no problem. We're changing what we teach now, and so that's not what the people at the Woodstock Food Festival teach. So we're gonna present at another festival or start our own festival or something. It could have gone that way, but they didn't do anything to keep the drama from happening, and they could have. Obviously, they didn't. They were not the kind of people to do that. So those are the 2 main reasons for all the drama. But when people who looked at the whole thing, who weren't followers of anybody, not mine, not Harley, not Doug's, not Dr. Sam's, nobody, looked at the whole picture, they said, okay, this is a lot of nonsense being made about this. It's quite obvious. They changed what they're teaching. It's not what they used to teach when they were originally at the Woodstock Food Festival. Their website has a different tact now. If Harley and Frehley would now post what people were posting earlier that got kicked out of 30 Bananas a Day, if they were to post that, now they get kicked out. So they've changed. They've gone on to seek out a different market, different niche market. Nothing wrong with that. That's just what people do. It's not good or bad. So it's just that the drama was allowed to continue to happen like that. And that's a shame. So that went, water under the bridge. That's what happened. The Woodstock Food Festival took a bit of a hit on the attendance. All right, the idea is to keep building it up. So we were taking many steps forward, then we took a couple of steps back. Okay, now it's time to take steps forward again. Now fast forward to the next big thing of the perfect storm that happened, which is the reason why the Woodstock Food Festival is its last year, is that someone else who was at the festival coming to speak, something happened. And that's putting it mildly. And this is Doug Graham that we're talking about. So something happened where, Doug's peers looked at what happened, and we're just kind of scratching our heads and like, there's OMGs flying around. What do we do about this? Let's investigate this. Because Michael wanted the event held to a really high standard. And that's what I love about Michael Ornstein, that he wanted to hold it to such a high standard. And in fact, Michael, it should be noted, was incentivized to do the Woodstock Food Festival by Doug Graham's book, 80-10-10. Michael's first foray into this whole raw food world was through Doug's book, and he was just enamored of Doug, and this is great. We have to have Doug Graham there and other people too. So that's how the festival got started. But to Michael's credit, He is not someone who is going to be beholden to anybody. He's not going to feel he owes anybody anything. If somebody F's up, somebody messes up, they're going to be taken to task for it. Doesn't matter who it is. Doesn't matter if it's me or Doug or Ellen, anybody. Doesn't matter. So a massive investigation was launched because this is not, obviously this was not going to be a witch hunt. That's the last thing anybody wanted. If you are going to be passing judgment on somebody, you want to make darn sure that you are doing it for the right reasons, that you've done the research, that you've done the investigation. So it was done. The information is still public. It's still on the website. You can still find the documents. And again, there were the people who were just bashing the Woodstock Food Festival over this. And most of them ardent Doug Graham followers, of course. But we would say, go look at the information. Go look at it with critical thinking, with a rational mind, no biases, and see what we saw. And this was a vote, by the way. This wasn't just Michael Arnstein kicking Doug out and saying you're not invited back again. This was left up to the board of directors, and the board was expanded for the purposes of just having more members to make these very kind of decisions. So the board did their due diligence, most of them, and looked at the data, looked at the information, looked at the evidence, took a vote, and the vote had to be a supermajority. It couldn't just be 51% or better. It had to be 75% or better, which is called a supermajority in U.S. politics anyway. So, and we got a supermajority to not invite Doug Graham back. Now, when that happened, obviously we lost even more attendees because the people who are coming specifically because Doug Graham was there and to hear him speak in person, they're not coming now. Not all of them, but a lot of them. So we lost attendance again. So we took another big hit. So, Ronnie, it was just a perfect storm, the wrong things happening at the right times, or, to account for there not being enough attendance and for the event itself to get in such a financial
a few
hole
problems arise
financially that it just cannot be
briefly on
continued.
That, the information and the situation with Doug and his event, I have different feelings about that because I think I have a little more information than a lot of people had about it because I knew a lot of people that were there, and I maybe got other further information other people didn't get. And I know that some people, as you're saying, some of the pioneers, I know you're saying it was a majority, but I don't know, some of them weren't part of the vote, or I'm not sure what happened. Let's not dwell on it too much. Whatever happens, happened. But the problem is that these events, they do have to make money or else they will stop. So that's where the balance there comes when we don't, as you're saying, perhaps you're not wanting business to get too much involved, but it's hard for it to keep going without some angles to bring some income in and things like that. And but so I guess the raw food business. What's your thoughts on that? Because you said you have a lot of feelings about, or a lot of thoughts on the raw food thing as a business, and what's the background on that and your thoughts on that?
Well, it's because I came early on in contact with people who were treating it as a business, but there's nothing wrong with treating it as a business. I mean, I have a business. You have a business if you're doing anything that makes money. You have a book that sells, money's coming in, you've got a business. There's nothing per se wrong with having a business. It's the type of business that it is, and there's two basic types. There's the profits before people business and the people before profits business. Now, most of the businesses in the world today arguably are probably profits before people businesses. The profits come first. They're number one. Now, the businesses themselves are going to make it seem like to the public that the public comes first and the customers come first. But really, bottom line, profits come first, people come second, if they come at all, if they're anywhere on the list. They're definitely not first. Then there's people like, most of the people at the Woodstock Food Festival, they have a business because money's coming in just from what they do. They didn't plan it that way. It just developed into something like that. So it's a business, but it's a people before profits business. And they're not very profitable, I have to tell you that, because of the way they run their business, not as a profits first business. I'm the same way. I've had a web presence, a website for 15 years. I've been teaching for just about that, and well, teaching for longer than that, but counseling for less than that. And I'm still living in a little, almost 30-year-old motorhome. I don't have nice homes like David Wolf and some other people who were running their business a little differently than the way I run my business. So when I started finding people that I thought I could work with and have some synergy with, I just was bumping up against a lot of people who came into it because it's now an industry, and they saw that there was money to be had, and they're just raking it in. And the public perception is that these people are very kind and caring and well-intentioned and honest and sincere. Of course, that's what the public perception has to be. But when I started getting in and being a fly on the wall and getting in behind the scenes and seeing that, no, that's not who these people are. So I didn't have anything to do with those people. So the kind of people I work with today are the people who are doing it for the same reasons I'm doing it, like Ellen Livingston and Dr. Sam and Robert Lockhart and Michael Ornstein, and there are others, of course. I like those people. So I've been able to see the difference between the people who are doing it for what I call the right reasons and people who are not doing it for what I call the right reasons. Because, Ronnie, we're not talking about teaching pottery. This is not a pottery classes that we're teaching. If we give people wrong information or just trying to get their money and teach a pottery class, it's not really the greatest class, doesn't have the best information. What's the worst that can happen? Their pottery comes out crappy. What's the big deal? It's not us. We're healthcare. We're health educators. Okay, we take an oath whether we raise our hand to it or not. We take an oath, the Hippocratic oath, to first do no harm. The people who I consider my colleagues and peers, even if they hadn't thought of that, if I told them that, they'd say, well, of course, first do no harm. Obviously, that's how I am running my practice or whatever. So in the raw food industry, there are people, and there are certain telltale signs. I mean, as long as you're unbiased and as long as you can think rationally and you realize that, okay, the healthiest diet for a human being to have the highest level of health or the best level of health that your DNA will allow you to have is a diet that does not contain cooked foods, because it wouldn't make any sense for it to have cooked food once you realize the damaging effects of cooked food and what happens to food when you cook it and their impact or their probable impact on the body. So that's kind of a no-brainer that you can figure out, all right, the best, optimal, best diet you can possibly eat has no cooked food in it. So when you hear people who were teaching the raw food diet, all raw, say, well, now, wait a second, here's the new thing. The raw food diet is dead. The raw food diet, as it has been taught, is dead. And this, I'm talking specifically about Kevin Gianni and Frederick Patnow. So they went to the raw food diet is dead now. You don't have to eat an all raw diet. You can have, now they were careful not to say optimal health, because they would be called on their BS if they did that. But so they said you can have vibrant health and robust health and still have some cooked food in your diet, because they're basically going after the biggest market share. Okay, but they're being honest about it. They're using words which are vague, robust, vibrant. What is that? They're not saying optimal. They're not saying it's the best diet. In other words, that you can have cooked food in your diet and it's just as healthy as eating an all raw diet. They're not saying that. So at least they're being honest about it in that respect. But they're not being as honest as the Reverend George Malcolmus. Are you familiar with him from Hallelujah Acres? He's been around for a long time preaching the raw food diet, and he has a product that he really likes to recommend. It's basically barley grass juice powder. It's called Barley Max. It's very similar to the one that I recommend. And he always said, he says, you want to shoot for an 80-20 diet, 80% raw food, 20% cooked food. But before he would put the period to the sentence, he would always say, but 100% is best. So if you're dealing with something serious, you want to somehow get to that 100% because it is the best. But otherwise, going from 20-80 to 80-20, man, that's going to be such an improvement in your health. And then he would go on to talk about the benefits of his Barley Max. I respected him for that. Now, he's since retired, and Hallelujah Acres is no longer under his control. It's been left to his kids, I guess. And they haven't changed anything except one thing. They took out that but 100% is best. Let's look at that one little thing. Okay, so I respect George Malcolmus more than I respect his progeny, I guess you could say. But anyway, so that's what I'm seeing in the raw food diet world. Now, you could say, well, Ronnie, let's be honest with each other. There is a percentage of the human population that will not, you could put a gun to their head, give them $1 million in cash, they will not eat an all raw diet. Look, there are people who are told by their surgeon, Joe, we just had to remove one of your lungs. You've got to stop smoking. We cannot remove your other lung. We don't have lung replacements yet. You've got to stop smoking. And Joe says, yeah, sure, doc. He doesn't. What's the reasons for that? He's not enjoying the party. He just doesn't care. Life wouldn't be worth it without his cigarettes. Whatever it is. So there are people who will not eat an all raw diet if their life depended on it. Okay, then let's be honest with them. We can still tell them that it's the best diet, but 80-20, raw cooked is still better than 20-80, which is what you're eating now. I mean, for crying out loud, stop taking the lettuce off your burgers. Leave the lettuce in the burgers. That's the first step. Then stop eating the burgers. Then stop eating the bun. Then just eat the... Oh, by the way, lettuce, I have to go on this tangent for a second, Ronnie. I went to Whole Foods today to pick up some stuff for a person I shop for, and I always walk through the cooked food department just to see what's new, what are they trying to ply people with, because there's always something new they come up with. And today, I was blown away. You would never guess in a million years what I saw in those self-serve bins that you can go and pick whatever you want. It was grilled romaine lettuce. Grilled romaine lettuce. It was romaine lettuce, because I saw romaine lettuce in a pan. I'm like, oh, what happened to this poor romaine lettuce? What happened to you? They should swap this out for some fresh stuff. And then I saw the sign, grilled romaine lettuce, and it was just with some olive oil, salt, and pepper. And I'm standing there just shaking my head. And an employee came up and said, what's the matter? Because they don't like to see customers shaking their head back and forth. And I'm pointing at it, and they're like, what? It's full. We keep these things full. I'm like, no, you're not getting it. Never mind. And then I walked around to the other side. I said, let me go around to the other side. And on the other side, I saw, if it couldn't get worse, watermelon feta cheese salad. Chunks of watermelon and feta cheese. I left the store. I didn't even shop for the person I had to shop for. I just left the store, and I had to make up an excuse why I didn't go shopping today. I couldn't take it. But anyway, okay, so how did I get on that tangent? I was talking about lettuce. Oh, yeah, take the lettuce off the bun. Anyway, so, yeah, in this industry, we're going to have people who recognize that not everyone is going to be able, but at least give them the information. At least say, here's what's optimal. And if you get here, I mean, you'll cut your risk of heart disease in half or better, But there's a psychological reason, because I was wondering why people aren't doing that, why George Malcolmus was the only one to do it, and why his family stopped doing it. What's the deal? So I talked to my behavioral psychologist friend, and there was another marketing guy, and I spoke to them, and I tried to figure this out, and they said, it's very simple. If you're doing this and you've got a marketing bent to it, you don't want to tell people, what I'm promoting to you is not the best. There is better than what I'm promoting to you. That sends very bad signals to a person. You want to make people think that what you're promoting is the best. That is the best. There's nothing above it. And that way your research can end with me. You can stick with me and I'll get you there and all this stuff. So that's why we're having people now, and I'm very disappointed. There was nothing wrong with Harley and Frehley going out for a different market niche. But now, the raw till 4, which is basically a high raw diet. It's not all raw diet. Okay, fine. That's perfect for the people who will never eat an all raw diet. But the meme is now getting around on the internet. And again, this is something that Harley and Frehley could have put a stop to. Maybe they had a hand in it, because it would certainly work in their favor marketing-wise. That you might have heard this, and tell me if you have, that you can be just as healthy, equally as healthy, eating a high raw diet as you can eating an all raw diet. When I heard this, when I saw it in forums and I saw people blogging about this, I was blown away even more than seeing the roasted lettuce. That there's people buying into this. Now, of course, why do people buy into this so easily? Because lots of people want to believe you can still have some cooked food in your diet and it won't hurt your health at all. Wouldn't that be?
I want to.
And maybe in a
Sorry, I just
perfect
want to
world,
interject.
you could. You could have cooked food in your
It's
diet
also
and it
the
won't hurt
idea
you at
that
all. But we live in a
when
real world,
you
not a perfect world. And in the real
introduce
world,
the
no,
cooked
you
food,
can't.
I think the
So
ideal as well for a lot of
that
people is I can do raw food as long as I like, and then I'll just have one cooked food meal, and that'll be it, and then I'll go back to all raw, and I'll just flow with that kind of thing. And for me, that was never an easy. That wasn't a thing when I was moving towards raw to try and have this kind of control where I could have one cooked food meal now and again and go back to 100% raw. That didn't seem to really work. It always ended up, in Doug Graham's phrase, the cooked food starts to take over. It becomes more and more of your diet, and then so I think people want to believe that as well, that they can control it.
Well, that's the one beauty part about eat all raw until the last meal of the day, which is essentially what raw till four is. Raw till four is just basically a transitioning tactic that one of the transitioning tactics people can use to go from mostly cooked to an all raw diet. And it works because it's a regimentation of sorts where you can have whatever cooked food you want at that last meal of the day, but prior to that last meal of the day, it's got to be all raw. And that's a pretty easy thing for people to follow.
Yeah.
Now, somebody tried to do it raw till, well, some people were saying raw till 4. Okay, I'll eat all my meals prior or after 4 o'clock or something. They were trying to figure out a way, to get around it. But still, the bottom line is you eat all raw until the last meal of the day. And you can't really have anything you want for the last meal of the day. We're not talking about going to McDonald's or Wendy's or Arby's for your last meal of the day. We're still talking about something that's relatively healthy. It's just not as healthy as the meals you ate prior to that. The problem with that is, and what these folks who teach this aren't talking about, is what I described to you earlier in this interview. Remember when I said that when I was increasing the raw food in my diet, and it went 50-50, 60-40, 70-30, 80-20, 90-10, I was feeling better and better by, relatively 10% increments. But when I went to 100% and got the remaining little 10% part of that cooked food out, it eventually felt like it was 1,000,000,000% better. There's a physiological reason for that. So that when and a lot of my clients and other people I know have that difficult time when they do this roller coaster and bounce around from all raw to some cooked, back to all raw to some cooked. Look at it from your body's perspective. When your body starts seeing all raw and no cooked, it can start dropping certain defense mechanisms. It can start rebalancing certain things to be more finely tuned for the raw food diet, which is the diet you're designed to eat. And then, it's smiling and everything's going good. And then, wham, a cooked food meal comes back in. Like, oh my God, I got to get these defense mechanisms back in, or I'm not going to let them go. And that's what you don't want. You don't want them to continue to hold on and not rebalance. And that's what happens when you're constantly. And what really underscores this is people who have eaten all raw for like a year or two, 100% raw for a year or two, and then they go to a party, and it's a vegan party. There's a lot of cooked food there, and they're like, oh, look, it's not going to kill me. It's not going to kill me. I'll have one little cooked thing there. What is it? It's nothing. It's all vegan, and it's cooked. And it really just knocks them for a loop. And they think back and they go, what the hell? Because when I used to eat this way back in the day, when I was eating mostly cooked, it didn't devastate me like this. What's going on? That's the physiology of it. So when you're constantly bouncing back and forth on a daily basis between all raw and some cooked and all raw and some cooked, and you stay there and you don't use it as a transitioning tactic, it's really not in your body's best interest health-wise. And this is the message that's getting buried. It's not even being put out there. It's just getting buried with the louder message that you can eat
Do you think,
mostly
raw
and some
well,
cooked
firstly, I want
and
to
have
say, are you
vibrant, robust,
promoting
optimal
a
health.
fruitarian
And that's
diet?
just
Would
simply,
you call it
it's clearly
fruitarian,
not true.
or how much vegetables do you think vegetables aren't an important thing at all, or?
That's an excellent question, because when I first started hearing about the raw food diet, the way it was being promoted was, fruits and vegetables, fruits and vegetables. And some people would get a little more specific and say, well, we're not talking about broccoli and the vegetables that you really need to cook, Brussels sprouts, for Pete's sake. Don't try to cut up Brussels sprouts really thin so that you can eat it. We're talking about basically fruits and leafy greens. All right, so that started to make more sense to me. So I thought, well, all right, so I guess that's what I'm supposed to eat, fruit and leafy greens. And in the beginning, I ate tons of leafy greens. I mean, even Doug Graham was surprised when I told him the amount of leafy greens I was eating, because I was obviously severely minerally deficient from the cooked food diet I had been eating. So I was eating tons of greens, but when I started, I said, wait, let me take a step back here. But is this what we're designed to eat? Let me go back and look. Let me look at bonobos and other primates. Do they eat this many greens as we do? And, as is pointed out by quite a number of health raw food educators, the further up on that scale you go, in the primate scale, the ones all the way at one end, the dopiest ones, they're eating more greens than fruit. When you go up to the more intelligent ones, the higher up you go, the more fruit and less greens. So just before the very top, and we're at the very top, maybe not for long, but we're at the very top right now. Just below us, they're eating a lot of fruit and very little greens, really. So it would make sense that we would even eat more fruit and even less greens in them, which would be hardly any greens at all. So when I started looking at that, I said, why are we eating so many greens? Why are so many people making these big salads? Not so much because they're told to. A lot of them, if they try not to eat these big salads, because there are much harder to digest a huge salad of greens than a meal of mangoes. But why? So why are they wanting it? I started to realize it's the minerals. That's what started to put me on to what is the actual nutritional content of the foods that we are eating today. I'm not interested in what we ate thousands of years ago. I'm interested in what is the quality of the foods that we're eating today. That's when I ran into Don Weaver. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He's one of the world's leading experts on soil nutrition. He's written letters to Congress to warn them about what's happening. So, we got the soil nutrition issue, we got the global warming issue, so we got plenty of things to be concerned about. But he knows about that stuff, and I finally got to meet him in person at a raw food event run by Dave Klein in California. I think it was called Raw Stock, and a great event. It was wonderful. There I was giving a lecture in an apple orchard. I mean, it was just great. Now, I don't like apples, really, because they're tropical fruits, not my favorite fruit. And by the way, another tangent, I came to realize one of the reasons I probably don't like apples, of all the fruits I don't like, that's the one I don't like the most. It has the highest ratio of fructose to glucose. And we really do better with fruits that have, either a 1-to-1 or more glucose than fructose. So no wonder I don't like apples, but I digress. Anyway, so at Rostock, I met Don Weaver, and it was great to meet him finally, and we were having some great chats about soil nutrition. I learned a lot. He brought cucumbers that were like this big, and I'm like, oh my God, that must be like a genetically modified, radiation enhanced cucumber. And he goes, no, I just grew it in really good soil. So, aha. So finally, I thought to ask him, all right, with what you know about the soil quality and of the foods that that people don't get to eat from their own garden, they have to buy from the agro-based food industry, do you take any kind of nutritional supplementation? Because up until that point, I hadn't really given it much thought. I won't say I was assuming everything we were buying was okay. I just never gave it any thought. It wasn't an assumption. It wasn't on my radar at all. So when he said, oh, absolutely, I take something. I add something to my diet, augment my diet with something. So that's how I got turned on to that and started thinking more about it. And that's why today, like George Malcolmus discovered, I recommend that the healthiest diet we're designed to eat is that's what we should eat, what we're designed to eat, but it needs to provide, it's not just the actual names of the foods. You can't just say, okay, durian, mango, and name a lot of other, tropical fruits and bananas and black sapotes, whatever. Yes, that's my diet. And it's funny, I'm talking about my favorite fruits here, and I'm not salivating like I normally do. It's because, by the way, folks, I'm on day 17 of a fast, a body-initiated fast. So I'm just not hungry, haven't been hungry for 17 days. So when my hunger went away, I just stopped eating. So when I see pictures on the screen of these beautiful durians that I'm going to be getting to eat in Southeast Asia when I go there to speak later on in the year, I'm like, oh boy, there's a part of my brain that's saying, oh boy, I can't wait. But I'm not salivating over it like I normally would because I don't really care about food right now. It's not speaking to me at all. Hopefully this fast won't go on for too much longer. I mean, I like water, but come on. No, but that's just one side of my brain. The other side of my brain is saying, no, you're doing fine. You're doing what I want you to do. 17 days, it's nothing. You've done 21 days, and you could probably do even more than that. because I've been eating a fruit-based diet for probably 24 years now. So yeah, this is what can happen when you're when you're really, really healthy, and this is how a water fast should go. A body-initiated water fast, not an intentional fast, body-initiated. Um, so this is when I started finding out about the nutritional quality of our food, because like I said before, quality of life maybe is more important than quantity of life. So if we're eating the right quantity of food, calorie-wise, but are we getting the amount of nutrition that we're designed to get? Because we're designed to require a certain amount of calories, obviously. If you're walking, doing a lot of walking during the course of a day, and you're climbing trees to pick fruit, you're going to require X amount of calories, in addition to what you need for your basal metabolism, which is based on your frame size and height and all that. That's what we're designed to get. If you get any less calories than that, you will lose weight. That's caloric restriction. That's silly. You don't do that. If you're of a normal weight, your ideal weight, you don't restrict your calories. You give your body the amount of calories it requires. Well, but the same thing has to hold true for nutrition, because when people talk about calories, it's just calories in, calories out. No, it's also about the quality of those calories. Now, when I talk to people about that, Ronnie, they say, well, yes, of course, you don't want to eat an all-fat diet like that Dr. Perlmutter recommends. Butter is back, eat all fat. It's supposed to be carbohydrates, and not just any carbohydrates. It's supposed to be the simple carbohydrates from fruit. So yes, we have to talk about caloric quality, not just caloric quantity. But no, there's also the quality of the food that you're eating nutritionally. And one of the reasons that's not being discussed, and it hasn't been discussed, is because of these memes that have been taught by the most popular raw food educators, being that as long as you eat an all raw diet of fruits and vegetables, you don't have to be concerned about nutrition. And I remember hearing that, but once I started speaking to Don Weaver, I'm like, well, wait a minute. Now I see it for what it is. It's a lovely notion, is what it is. I mean, I love to believe it, and that's how it was many millennia ago. But it might not be true today. It's obviously not true today. And now with all my research that I've done in that area, I see it's definitely not true today, that we can just eat the specific diets that we're designed to eat. Although I will say, Ronnie, if you're eating tropical fruits, which are not the huge cash crop fruits, because I don't see a lot of people in the U.S. eating durian, I got to tell you right now. I don't know how popular it is in Scotland either, but it's not a huge cash crop food. So it's going to be, not grown like the bananas are grown today. Let's put it that way. Bananas in the U.S. very popular. Well, it's the most popular tropical fruit in the world, I think, for subsistence, certainly. But the Cavendish banana, the one that we all get today, and I'm sure that's the one you get in Scotland also, is just like nutritionally, bleh, it's just so devoid. How do you know? You don't know if that's the only banana you've ever eaten, because where's your, what's it relative to, But I've had the pleasure of being able to eat bananas from down here in South Florida that have grown on banana farms in really good soil, the trees spaced really far apart. I now know how to find the one that I want, and I cut it with the machete, and it took 9 months to get that big regime of bananas, and I'm eating namwas and other ones, and I'm like, okay, this is a banana. This is what a banana is supposed to taste like. It's the same kind of reaction where you've eaten tomatoes from the store for many years, your whole life, right? And then you get tomatoes from someone's garden that are grown in proper soil, and you eat that tomato, and you go, oh my God, that's what a tomato is supposed to taste like, not what you get in the store. And then you can't buy them from the store anymore. Well, that's how it happened with bananas with me when I started eating the Namwa bananas and the other bananas that were even creamier. It was just a normally creamier variety than the Cavendish. And I'm like, oh man, these are so good. I can't go
Pause
back to
one
the
moment?
Cavendish now.
I just want to
Dang.
mention
So I've got to keep going and
you're
getting
going to
these
be speaking
Namwa
at a few
bananas because they're
events
just so good. They're so good you can't even
upcoming
make a
very
smoothie
soon.
out of them. You
One
can't
of those
bring yourself
events
to make
is
a
something
smoothie
that
because they're
probably
just so
some
good to
people haven't,
peel.
well, the
Anyway,
Woodstock Food Festival
I
touched on.
digress. So, sure.
That's coming up in August. And the other one is the Fruits and Health Festival. Excellent. Yeah, just keep that
Yep.
up
So
for a while. So,
that's the
Fruits and Health
website
Festival.
for it.
This is an event in Slovenia. I was
Right.
there the first year. A very fantastic event,
Fruits
beautiful
and Health
venue,
Festival.
beautiful country,
I do the
wonderful
graphics
country.
for you, Ronnie.
And for people in Slovenia or Europe, very easy to get to. Um, so, what kind of things are you going to be teaching at that event, and what's your schedule going to be like?
sure.
Yeah.
The dates are, it's the last couple of days in July and the first couple of days in August, as I remember. And it's in Slovenia. And if you're listening and you're in Europe right now, try your best to get there. And it was
Right.
so great because, as you remember, there were people from so many different countries. It's amazing. And it was my first time to Europe, by the way. So I didn't really, I mean, I've seen it on maps, but I never realized the countries are so close to each other the way the states are in the United States. So we had people from Hungary, Austria, France, Germany. I mean, it was a stereotypical melting
Mhm.
pot. It was great. So I had a fantastic time because of that, but not just because of that. Taya, who does the festival, who's the organizer of the festival, did her festival the same way basically Michael Arnstein did the Woodstock Food Festival. She wanted the best speakers there. She wanted the best food there. She wanted the best experience for everybody, the best information, everything high quality. And that's the way she did it. Um, so
Yeah.
this was her third. Will be the third year for it. Unfortunately, again, it's also the last year, not for the same reasons as the Woodstock Food Festival, slightly different reasons. Michael Arnstein had a staff that he put together, so he delegated a lot of the stuff that needed to be done. Well, Yulia was basically the the whole staff initially, but then she got Ann to help her and some other people. Taya, just
Yeah.
she's a take charge person, and she just if you want it done right, you got to do it yourself. She did have an assistant, and the assistant was great. Her name escapes me at the moment, but it's a lot to put on one of these festivals to do it right, to do it really so it comes off without a hitch, so that the attendees are not aware of all the problems that come up. Because believe me, with the Woodstock Food Festival and all festivals, there's tons of problems that come up, but the attendees can't know about them. That's the way to do it. So the attendees never know about them, and they think everything is just hunky dory. So it's been a lot, and it took its toll on Taya, and she has a family and little kids and stuff, so she just can't do it again. I would say unless she has a huge staff that can help her. But sometimes to get a staff, some people need to be paid, and that's where the
Yeah.
whole money thing comes in, because it just about broke even, barely. I think last year I even went in the red a little bit, and she had to actually have money out of pocket. And she's just somebody with a family. This was just what she was doing. It's not fair to have people spend money out of pocket, especially if they can't afford to do it. So she decided this will be the last year. It was just taking too much toll on the family. Doesn't mean it won't come back in some form, maybe with her and other people helping. You never know what's going to happen. The world is an ever-changing place, and there are people who appreciate the fact that these festivals, like the Woodstock Food Festival and the Slovenia Fruits and Health Festival, these are of the highest caliber. Let me just phrase it that way. So this year it's going to be me. Last year it was me and Chris Kendall, and it was great. We had a ball. This year it's going to be me and Dr.
I've
Sam.
really enjoyed Dr.
He is
Sam's,
fantastic.
not
He's
just
a
his
fantastic
lectures,
speaker.
but his
If anyone
physical
has
fitness
heard him at the
classes are
Woodstock
all
Food Festival,
informative.
your brains are just blown by the amount of information that he imparts to you. But it doesn't blow you away. It's really solid information. Uh, oh, ab- Absolutely, absolutely. So he's going to be there live and in person with me, and Chef Alicia will be back again. She chefed the event last year and the Woodstock Food Festival, so the food is going to be fantastic. And we're going to have Ellen Livingston and Megan Elizabeth appearing. I used to say via satellite. We don't say that anymore. It's now via Skype. So they'll be making an appearance and giving a
Excellent.
presentation. In fact, I think the food presentation, it's going to be pretty cool. Megan's going to show you via Skype her preparing something, and then we're going to prepare it along with her there live, or else it's going to be prepared and we'll be able to eat it instantly. So that's going to be cool. And Ellen Livingston, fantastic work. Ellen and I used to tour together and give talks together, and I was, focusing on the physiological, and she would focus on the
Okay.
psychological, and it was just a really a great pairing there.
And I think you were
So
saying to me
she's going to make an appearance. So
when we
it's
were
going to
speaking earlier, you were
this will be
saying
the last one, but it's going to be
if
like
people are going
the
to sign
best
up
one.
for it, that
And there's going to be somebody else there speaking too. And
you'll
you can
get
just
them
go to that,
a copy of some of your books via
go to there, and
ebook
you'll see it
versions
on
of your
there.
books.
Yes. I know there's some people out there who are on the fence about, whether to go to the Slovenian Fruit Festival, for example. If you sign up within a week of watching this video, you will get all my ebooks complimentary, no charge. I mean, some people would say, Don, tell them it's a $30 value. Okay, I'm really not into marketing, so I don't like saying that. And what's $30, really? But I'm just trying to do something to help incentivize people to to push the button and go to this festival. Again, I think I've made the point a number of times. It's the last one. So if you were thinking, well, maybe I can go next year, and Woodstock Fruit Festival, maybe I can go next year, there's going to be most probably no next year for these festivals. So now is the time to go. There's going to be that special energy when you're at the last of a festival that's been on for a number of years. So it's like, sure, it's a one-of-a-kind event, not to be, and the reason why it's a one-of-a-kind event, it's not that, there won't be events in the future that I'll be speaking at, Dr. Sam will be speaking at, Ellen Livingston, Megan Elizabeth. It's who puts on the event. It's the caring they take to put on a great event. So with Taya and Michael Arnstein, you want to go to events put on by Taya and Michael. I mean, that's just what I'm going to say. And these are the last two that are coming up. So yes, you sign up for there, or sign up for the Woodstock Food Festival. If you do that, I'll offer the same offer as an incentive. You just email me, or they'll let me know, or let them know. I think Taya said that if you sign up to the Slovenia Festival, tell her when you sign up, write it in the little note box, Don's ebooks or something, just something to indicate. And then what she will do is she'll give me the email address, and I'll just send you the ebooks. Yeah. It's a small thing, but it's just I'm trying to just impart to everybody the importance of coming to these events. And I'm going to be very honest. I would like to see Taya walk away with a few dollars, and certainly not being in the red. And she's just hoping it just breaks even. She's keeping her fingers crossed it breaks even. I would like, for all the work that she's put into these festivals, I would like to see her make something for it. That's not why she's doing it, and I want to even imply that. She's doing it. It's her heart's work to do this, as it is mine and Dr. Sam's and Ellen's and Megan's and a lot of other people. So these are the kind of festivals to attend, and unfortunately they're disappearing because they're, to do a festival, to keep it continuing, there's that financial thing. So unless we get backers in there, some people who can appreciate what we're all doing and say, okay, you're covered. It won't go in the red, and you'll make something because you need money to buy your own food and pay your own bills. That's kind of what we need. So I'm not saying there's anyone listening to that, great. Listening to me right now saying that. But if you know somebody who has been helped by the raw food diet and they're philanthropic in any way, shape, or form, just let them know about the struggle that the best of the best festivals are having.
As an additional bonus to sign up. So that's a fantastic offer, Don. And we were talking about your fast and the body-initiated fast earlier on. But another thing I was going to ask you about, you've mentioned before that you believe that kind of longevity. Well, we've went over an hour here. We're over an hour now. Well, maybe, do you want to call it an end to this one for today? I feel like you've got a lot more to say, but just so that we don't go into territories where people will miss out on the last few minutes, it might be better to break it into two or something. But yeah, so we'll pause here, and just to reiterate to everyone, Don is appearing in the Woodstock Fruit Festival, last one, possibly the last one, we'll see, and the Slovenian Fruits and Health Festival, and you can get, and Don's website.
That's fine. I can go all night.
If you want to contact Don, that's where he is at. Okay, so let's pause it here, and we'll maybe go on to part two. But thanks for joining us for this one.